Hi, guys. Sitting out front today. A little breezy in the back, and I was kind of afraid that might not be able to push through the cold wind and everything like that. 32 degrees. It's a little bit cool for being outside, but damn it, the sun's out, and I wanted to be outside today. And besides that, I got emotionally triggered this morning, and I figured universe's way of telling me change up my game. And yes, as I do that, I want you guys to remember that greatness starts with the first sip. So here it is, 10 o'clock in the morning, coffee with Cam time, and got up this morning after doing that catering gig, having my 14th anniversary and everything like that yesterday. Didn't get much sleep, but yeah, still got up for 4:30, hit the road, got my walk in, got home, and I did something that I shouldn't do. I got doom scrolling on Facebook, which it happens from time to time. And I try not to beat myself up about doing that when I could probably be using my time more productively. But today I was kind of glad I did. I got emotionally triggered by a post from a group entitled Positive Psychology. And the post was this. It said, any man who raises a hand to a woman can no longer officially be considered a man. And I thought, wow, that is the most ridiculous platitude described as a truism that's ever been put on paper. And I got emotionally triggered by it because, well, confession to make, I consider myself a man. I have all the biological equipment of a man. I have the emotional acuity of a man. And I have, in my past, a little over 5 years ago now, raised hands to a woman. And I don't feel like I'm less of a man because I did that. And I'm not going to justify my actions. I'm not going to try to state anything unequivocally or defend myself, but I did it. Given the same set of circumstances, I'd do it again. 5 years ago, I was faced with a situation where an intoxicated woman in a state of narcissistic rage was screaming over a defenseless 6-year-old child with her hand raised, ready to slap him. There were no other women to come to my aid. There were no other men to witness the event. It's just an event that I happened to witness. And I got between the raging narcissistic woman and the child, and I pushed the narcissistic woman back. She stumbled back, fell on her ass, and which ended up directing her anger towards me instead of the child. And because she was in that intoxicated state, she was unable to stand up and ended up calling police and trying to have me charged with assault. The police decided, after interviewing both myself, the female in question, and the child, that it was her that was in the wrong in the situation, and that I did everything conceivably possible to defend a weak, defenseless individual against a stronger individual in a state of intoxication by using my physical superiority and using justifiable force. And thinking back on it, given that same set of circumstances, I would do the same thing. I would defend the defenseless against a stronger individual that were not in control of all their faculties at the time. However, because I did that, according to this positive psychology post today, I'm not a man. I'm not a real man. And that, sorry about that, guys. And that post really stuck to my craw because it basically allows half of the world's populace to do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, with no accountability or possible consequences for their actions. And I'm not one to advocate violence against any human being, but in a last resort, sometimes that becomes necessary. And what I really want to say is that we have to stop dealing in absolutes, because at its core, any absolute is a rule of thumb that must be questioned based on circumstances and reality. Because at the end of the day, a person must choose their moral code, and no one's moral code is superior or inferior to anyone else's. It's only a product of their upbringing, raising, and societal norms. And what society dictates is one thing, but you have to question each societal dictate and norm and ask whether it sets and suits with your moral code. And I'm opening myself up to be canceled right now. I'm opening myself up for shaming, and I'm okay with that. My mentor said that, Cam, in order to become more engaging, you need to be polarizing. So guess what? Today, I'm being polarizing because I cannot fathom any circumstance where I would allow someone to attack another person just based on their biological sex. And if that makes me wrong, according to today's conventional wisdom, I'm totally okay with that. And I'm fine with that because words matter. And it's a weird paradox when you think about it, because I'm always one to say, speak before you think, unless you end up in analysis paralysis. But words do mean something. And before you post banality described as a truism, which is basically just a platitude that is ridiculous at the face of it, at least in my opinion, think about what you're actually saying. And when you just mindlessly post and share without examining your own beliefs because it feels good or feels right, or that's what society expects me to do, then you've lost. You've lost your free will. You've lost control over yourself. And at the end of the day, it's yourself and your own moral code that needs to rule supreme. And when you see inequities and inequalities, you must stand up and be counted. And sometimes masculine energy is necessary in the face of circumstances. And to describe all masculine energy as toxic is the height of ridiculousness, in my humble opinion. And that's basically what I wanted to say today. I'm sorry I got emotionally triggered, but I'm glad I did, because it brought back to mind a situation that I'd completely forgotten about in life. And I felt the need to speak on that topic today, because at the end of the day, not that violence is ever the correct course of action, but sometimes violence occurs in the heat of a moment where it was reasonable. And to lay blame just based on sexuality is ridiculousness. A man that's getting beaten up by a woman should have the right to defend himself. A man that goes out and picks on women and just uses his force out of hand should be chastised, berated, and made a social pariah. And that's okay as well. However, there are no absolutes, and each individual situation must be looked at and dived into based on its own merits at the time. And that's what I'm just asking of you guys in my community. Realize that each situation has to be based upon its own merits. And if you deal in absolutes, You are closing yourself off to the way that the world works. You're closing yourself off to other points of view. And at the end of the day, nobody's way of being is superior or inferior to yours. And you must question everything. Don't just be brainwashed. Don't just swallow the pablum because it feels good in a pop culture sort of way and I'm going to get likes or comments or engagement. Question everything. Be aware that some situations call for extraordinary measures. And sometimes any man that is a man must stand up and be counted. And sure, they're going to get knocked down a few times, but conformity is not the answer. You have to blaze your own path. You have to be willing to stand up for what you truly believe in, even in the face of ridicule, judgment, guilt, shame. And you must be willing to have your voice heard, to state your opinion, and to know what your opinion is, why your opinion is what it is, and realize that there is no 100% truth to anything, only a truth based on personal perspective, cultural upbringing, and the lessons that you are on this earth to learn. And today I learned that I have to speak my personal truth. I have to stop sugarcoating my truth. And I have to be at one with who I am and change my way of being and to accept my power as a man in balance and not try to manipulate other people for my energy, but be true to myself, be true to my core, and question everything and not judge other people and be less judgmental towards other people. Because at the end of the day, I have done things that society dictates are wrong, apparently. However, I would still do them anyways. And I must speak for those that are unwilling to speak, that are staying silent because they're afraid of being chastised. Well, that's no longer who I am. That's no longer who I'm going to be. I'm going to be strong in my speaking. I'm going to be polarizing when it's called for. And I'm going to open people's minds to possibilities. Because in a world that's filled entirely with energy, anything is possible. And I'm learning more and more each day that the timeline I'm drifting towards is the right timeline for me, that the choices I'm making are right for me, that I can accomplish anything in a world that's comprised entirely of energy. And as I realize that I've given away my power based upon what society says I should act and how I should act, then I'm giving away myself and who I'm meant to be on this earth. So as Coffee with Cam continues tomorrow, you're going to see a new polarizing Cam instead of the everything's hunky-dory version of myself that not only gives away his power, but is no longer in alignment with his true being from fear of judgment, ridicule, shame, or guilt. Because there's no place for that in a world. It's comprised entirely of energy. And as I transform my future, I hope more people rise up, take notice for who they are, for who they want to be, and in the face of injustice in the world, speak their mind and realize that there are no absolutes, that there are only shades of gray, that love is hate, that passion is apathy, that there are all degrees. And sometimes in the face of adversity, you have to stand up and be counted. And that's today's Coffee with Cam, where greatness starts with the first sip. And I'm sorry if I've upset people today. I'm sorry if I get canceled, but any member of my community, I hope they understand the fact that there are no truisms. There are only layers to anything. And if you deal in absolutes, you are going to lose sight of what's truly important. A world filled of opportunities and different opinions where no opinion is right or wrong, only an opinion. And I love you all. And I hope that you got some value out of what I said today. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And I look forward to enjoying some more coffee with Cam because greatness does start with the first sip.